Right. Well, I'll get started then. I'll begin with the presentation so everybody can kind of get what they came for, which is a trip to Uzbekistan. And why not? Because as we were saying, the weather is just bad everywhere. So it's a great time to be looking at a spot that has, well, Uzbekistan doesn't have any precipitation. It's very dry. It's very hot. I was there in the summer, so I was there at the hottest time of the year. So I'll yeah, get the screen linked in and we'll do our presentation. Thank you for your patience while I line that up. So now we'll get going officially. Like Christy was saying, my name's Dave Wentworth. I'm coming to you from Newfoundland. You might be like, well, why is this guy from Newfoundland coming into the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery? Well, it's because I lived in Moose Jaw for a number of years, and during that time, I loved supporting the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery. I've done presentations before, back when we were all sequestered on Zoom, back during Corona, if you remember the good old days. And then, of course, in person, I've been involved with the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery in a number of ways. I served on the board, and I've was there last year at the Christmas as the auctioneer, so that was a lot of fun. And I saw online that you guys have a gala coming up, so I hope that our patrons today will consider going to your gala. But for now, we're going to go to Uzbekistan, and I titled this "A Journey Along the Silk Road" because when I said to people that I was going to Uzbekistan, a lot of people said where, why, what. It was all the W5, but then I started to, educate people about the destination. And a lot of what I do professionally, it is about educating people about destinations. And then once you start talking about the Silk Road and people like Marco Polo and the trade that would have gone through there, of course, people have heard about the history before. And so then they're tuned into the area. A little bit about getting to Uzbekistan. It wasn't the easiest or most straightforward journey. There's only one flight from Uzbekistan's capital, Tashkent, to New York a few times a week that links it to North America. And that airline, Uzbekistan Airlines, which I flew in and out of, they don't really have links with any of the other airlines over in this part of the world or things like Star Alliance. And so basically, I ended up flying to Frankfurt, Germany. I hung out for a few days. And then I flew from Frankfurt into Uzbekistan, into Tashkent. And then when I was done my tour, I flew from there to London. So I kind of had to have a ticket over to Europe and then from there, a ticket into Uzbekistan. And it was about 6.5, 7 hours from going from Europe over to Uzbekistan. And as a Canadian, I was able to visit this destination at the time I went. There was no visa requirement. You could simply go in with your passport and stay for up to a month. And I was on a 10-day tour, so that worked out really well. As I was saying at the beginning of the presentation today, Uzbekistan, very hot during the summer months, extremely hot. I'm talking temperatures 40 and above. Which is a little bit of humidity, relatively dry, but enough humidity just to remind you how hot it really is. And so you'll see in a lot of my presentation today as I take you through the tour that I did, the day by day, our activities would be really morning based and evening themed. We weren't doing a whole lot in the afternoon. We either had free time or we were driving to our next stop. And so, yeah, the tour that I was on was with G Adventures, and there were 16 travelers. As I've said, it was a 10-day tour that started and ended in Tashkent. And this tour was interesting because it was one component of a larger web of Central Asia tours that you can do with this operator. So some people were doing the whole schmear. They were doing like 5 different stands in a month. And then, of course, some people like me just joining for this component for 10 days. Will point out that a lot of my journey from Tashkent to Kiva, which is we'll take you through those cities today. It was all carried out by a tour bus. We had a tour van to sit the group. And that vehicle was fine, but the quality of transportation in terms of the roads in Uzbekistan, the roads really weren't the greatest. So the days were really long. It was really hot. It was very tiring to be there. But even just when I went through the pictures today and I saw, what I was able to see there, and I'm going to take you through that, it was still worth it to go there. Just a little bit about where Uzbekistan's located as well. You might be sitting there at the museum today, or you might be on Zoom being like, well, where is Uzbekistan? So Uzbekistan's located in Central Asia. It's kind of in between Turkey and India, between Turkey and China. Of course, that makes sense that it's between major countries like this. It is a crossroads on the Silk Road. It has a lot of Russia to the north, and at up until 1991, this whole area would have been USSR. So it was in 1991 that Uzbekistan, got its independence. And there are 36.4 million people that live in Uzbekistan, and it is a member of the language Uzbek. It's a member of the Turkic language. It was very interesting there if you're into foreign languages. I'm a bit of a foreign language nerd because we would see things written in the Cyrillic way. We would hear lots of Russian on the ground, certainly lots of Russian being spoken. But then we would hear Uzbek, and some of the words that I would hear reminded me of when I was traveling in Turkey. So you can see that connection. Also, some of the words to me reminded me of Arabic. And then, of course, English is spoken in the tourism sector. I included a picture from my flight over there because it was interesting. I was there just this last summer, and Uzbekistan Airlines is one of the fewer airlines that is still flying over Russian airspace. So we ended up flying over Moscow, which is something that not a lot of people are doing nowadays. That said, the destination was not Moscow. It was to get to Tashkent. Here I am on arrival at the Tashkent International Airport. I've just gone through customs, got my passport stamp, just waiting for my bag, and here in Central Asia at like 1:30 in the morning. So again, my journey started and ended in Tashkent, which is the nation's capital. So Tashkent, the name itself means stone city. Tash is stone and Kent is city. And it is the nation's capital. So you're going to find 3 million people there. And it is the largest city in Central Asia. So it's also not just a crossroads for Uzbekistan and people getting around that country, but again, people getting around this region of Central Asia. So, in behind me is Hotel Uzbekistan. I'll tell you about this building. This is not the hotel we stayed at, but if you travel to Uzbekistan earlier on, like maybe in USSR times, you would have been staying at the Hotel Uzbekistan. And so this is built in what we could describe as a Soviet brutalist style of architecture. And so, you see a lot of that, of course, in Tashkent. There's definitely Soviet influence. This hotel, this architecture, it's designed to look like a book. If you can see an open book, that's what they were going for here, an open book. Anyway, it's a very dominating building, and you'll see it pop up a few times today as we take a look, as we tour around the city of Tashkent. Let's get on with that tour. Oh, let's have one more look though. Actually, Hotel Uzbekistan's next to a large park, and what I wanted to show you in this picture was the statue of Amir Timur, who is one of the forefathers of Uzbekistan. And so there's a statue located in Tashkent as well to honor his history and his contributions to that nation. This is another museum, and I was trying to look up in my notes before presentation time today, and I couldn't quite get there to recap the name. But I wanted to show this as well because there's a more of an Islamic influence in the architecture of this building. And so right from the hop, we see in Uzbekistan influences from the Soviet world. We see influences from Islamic culture, Islamic architecture and design. And definitely those two themes carry on during the trip to Uzbekistan. Soviet vibes, Islamic vibes. Inside this museum, you can see typically I found in my travels in Islamic countries that there's such over-the-top, outrageous insides to these buildings. You can see all the ornate gold, you can see the chandelier, you can see these paintings, you can see the detail. There was so much put into this. This is just simply outrageous in a wonderful way. And just more of the artwork inside of that. A lot of blue in Uzbekistan. The color blue definitely becomes a theme. You'll see that today as we work through the slides in my presentation. Back outside, back to Hotel Uzbekistan. How could I resist another picture? Maybe this angle shows a little bit more the height with the stairs going up to it, to the lobby, or maybe you can get that viewpoint of an open book, which again was the architectural inspiration for the Hotel Uzbekistan. Later that day, so that was just we walked around before our tour began. Our tour began in the evening, and I chose to include this picture to show our guide. So this is Anastasia, a guide who made everything possible for us in Uzbekistan. Without her guidance, we certainly wouldn't have been able to see or understand everything it was that we were touring over there. And you can see her shirt has the logo for G Adventures. I've traveled a lot with G Adventures. Most people know I'm a travel agency owner and travel agent, so I book a lot of people with G Adventures. Really great for the authentic style of travel if that's your vibe. Anyway, you can also see later in the day too, this is getting towards the end of the day, that the sun is setting on the Hotel Uzbekistan, and so it does give it a different color, maybe a bit of a rose gold effect. Hey, this was my first dinner that I ate in Tashkent, even though it's not an Uzbek dish. This is a Georgian dish from the country of Georgia, not the state of Georgia. And it's called, I'm going to try to pronounce this and hopefully not butcher it, Pakuri. And it's basically like this boat of bread and it's filled with cheese and egg and it's all just ooey gooey. And I love ooey gooey foods. I love yeasted foods. I love cheesy foods. So this sort of thing has my name written all over it. I will show some pictures today of the foods that I ate in Uzbekistan, and I'll point out that this is a meat-loving country, and I'm a vegetarian of many, many years. So some of my personal bites you'll see are from the vegetarian point of view, but I will show some meat dishes also. Just my receipt in Uzbekistan, just to point out that Cyrillic language popping up. And this meal wasn't overly much. I would say maybe it was 20 bucks for the two dishes I had and the glass of wine, but I paid 215,000. So the currency, the Uzbek som, it's one of those currencies. If you've traveled in countries where it's lots of numbers, lots of zeros, you'll be dealing with one of those currencies. Should point out if you're interested in going to Uzbekistan, I did take euros and I just kind of converted them to Uzbek money as I needed as I went along. But I was also able to pay with tap and the modern payment systems were all set up. In a lot of ways, that way, the infrastructure reminded me of just being in Europe. Hey, here's a picture of Hotel Uzbekistan at night, and they're showing this is the Uzbek flag. I know there's some trees kind of blocking the view, but they do cast lights against this building as well at night, so you can see it in a different aura. Next morning, waking up, I love Tashkent. So today we had a city tour of Tashkent, and then we went to our first city in Uzbekistan. This is a monument and a park that we were taken to. This was the first stop in our Uzbekistan city tour, and it is to recognize the destruction of an earthquake that went through in April 26, 1966. And it was just a terrible earthquake and it did terrible damage to the city, lots of upheaval. And of course, the city rose from that. And this park commemorates that, the survivors, the victims, all of it. So this monument that is found there shows the triumph of moving forward, rising onward, continuing onward. As we continued with our city tour in Tashkent, again, these aspects of the Islamic world, you see it all over the place. And so here we can see this mosque that we're going to go and visit. And there's these beautiful colors of blue with the gold toppers. And that's what it looked like when we got up close. And you can see the entranceway as well. It's very ornate. It's very over the top. Lots of blue, lots of decor. We've got lots of pictures of this coming up. This next picture, this dome, is interesting. Again, really nice colors of blue, lots of detail. What's going on here is that it is a market. And so we were taken to a market and given free time to go around the market and circulate and check it out for ourselves. And they had spice and open meats and bakeries and tea and just about everything under the sun inside this market. So there's some pictures of me next to all the spices. And this picture as well for food, this is the national dish. And so this was the first time I saw the national dish in Uzbekistan. It's called plov, and that would be spelled Plov. And so it's a rice that has meat in it. So I was served a vegetarian plov on my trip, and I have a picture of that coming up later. But this would be the national dish, and this was quite popular in the market because, of course, a lot of the vendors, a lot of the regular folks that just go down to the market, they were eating this. This is their staple food. Num num num. Inside this, well, we saw this bakery, a lot of bakery, a lot of bread in the Uzbek diet. Delicious fresh bread. This was the next part of our day in Tashkent. We went to go on the metro. And so the metro was built, I would say, with a lot of Soviet influence. So we see stations that are very ornate, lots of decor, big, triumphant. And it was only up until a few years ago that photography was even permitted inside the Tashkent metro. And so if you like going to countries or the idea of going to destinations that have just kind of opened up appeals to you, then you might find something enjoyable in Tashkent. So this is what I mean when I talk about how the stations were very over the top. This was just an ordinary residential station, and you can see with all the pillars and the details on the roof. And I didn't do a great job photographing it all, but there's scripture up inside the lip of those domes, and just I mean, everywhere you look, there's detail, there's embellishment, there's artistry. And just another picture of another station. So our subway tour, we went like two stations, made a connection, and then went to another two stations or so in another direction. So we got to see a few different metro stops and made a connection and saw a few different trains. And lots of white light in this one, lots of marble. And just a picture where maybe I outshine the subway station a little bit. And as we come out of the subway station, back up to main level, this would be the end of our sightseeing in Tashkent of doing the metro. After this, we just kind of had a quick lunch, then hopped in our van. We had our van waiting for us because we had about 4 or 5 hours to go to our next destination, and that would be the city of Samarkand. And so Samarkand is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, crossroad of cultures. And the history here goes back to 700 BCE. Population-wise, a little over 500,000. And it's a hub on the Silk Road that flourished on trade, culture, and innovation, and also astronomy. So on arrival in Samarkand, this was the first mosque that we were taken to see. I'm not sure if this is an active mosque or if it's a historical preservation, but again, you can see the dome, the blue, the minarets, the over the top way that it's decorated, all the embellishments, and just a front perspective of that facade, what that would look like. And this is the Rajasthan, which is the main attraction in Samarkand. We went here a couple of times, and I would say that this is kind of like, for me, it felt like it was the hub of the whole city. Everything kind of radiates out from here, so multiple times we would pass by. And so I got a couple pictures of this coming up so you can see what it looks like at night. They put some really cool lights on it. We were off to an included dinner to experience Uzbek food at a host family. And so they had cooked a meal for us, and this would be the table. And so again, you can see just lots of detail, lots of embellishment, the way the plates are, where they've got gold rims on them, the drinking glasses, just everything was made to look so exquisite for us. So we felt, of course, very welcomed at all times. This, I can't remember if we had this as a starter or if it came at the end, but it was a sweet bite and it was a fried dough. And yeah, it just kind of reminded me of a fritter or, well, here in Newfoundland, like a towton or something. And this was my vegetarian plov. So again, it's a rice-based dish. It has sliced peppers in it. Mine had some quail's eggs on it, but other people would have had meat on theirs. And then walking back, by the time we were done the dinner, the sun had set. And so we got to walk through this ancient city going back to our accommodation. So that was really nice just to see, again, all of this Islamic architecture, but to see it from the nighttime point of view. And I really enjoyed going up to the main square again, just seeing this building with the blue lights this evening and the little blue against the green and all these jewel-like colors that I found really entrancing. And what else do we got up here? We got some more pictures from that night, just the blue, these peacock colors. And then the next morning, we went to see this astronomy, this observatory, I guess I should say, where they would have done astronomy. And so inside here, they had all the different like sextants and things to look up into the sky. And they were doing that for like hundreds of years. And so it was really cool to see how the Islamic world has a major history with astronomy. And this was like another mosque that we went to see, more blue, more archways, more grandeur. I chose to show this picture just because I love all of the shades of blue. And again, the little details that are worth getting up close and looking at, the scripture, the little flowers, the floral details, just so much on the go here. Almost the more you look at it, the more you can see. And another perspective from the inside of that mosque, this would be from the courtyard, is very meditative here. I could see where this would be a spot historically where people would study religion or go to pray or have that moment of spirituality. And on the way out, again, you can see very clearly all the detail, all the embellishment. Another mosque, there's going to be a lot of mosques, so I'm going to kind of move through. And so the courtyards, the outsides, the courtyards, and me, of course. This is not the same one that had the night show. This is a daytime point of view. A lunch that I had, a lot of tomatoes, especially as a vegetarian, a lot of fresh cheeses. This was a burrata salad. Be like something I would have gotten in Italy, but I got it in Uzbekistan. A lot of tomatoes here on this sandwich, a sandwich with cucumbers, tomatoes, and labneh, which is, I don't know, it's looser than a cream cheese, but thicker than a yogurt. Anyway, this was really delicious. A lot of fresh baked bread. This was my favorite night show. This was our last night in Samarkand, and I just loved the purple and the pink colors that were on display this evening. And then our next stop was to the Kizilkum Desert, and that was a real highlight for me. You may never have heard of the Kizilkum. You've heard of the Gobi Desert, you've heard of the Sahara Desert. The Kizilkum, it means red sands, and it goes over Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan. And yeah, it's the 15th largest desert in the world. And so as we left Samarkand, this would give you an idea of what it looked like driving in Uzbekistan. Very flat, like Saskatchewan. It's flat. It's arid. It's Uzbekistan is double landlocked, so it's a landlocked place, hot and dry. And one surprise for us, and it was really this was like ambrosia. There was this lake in the middle of the desert that we could go swimming at, and so we had to stop for an hour, which was wonderful. We were able to get out of the van and stretch our legs and go swimming in the waters. And then about an hour later, we were at the yurt camp that we stayed at for the night. This was called the Sputnik yurt camp. And this was really cool. Like they had Wi-Fi down there, and I'll show you a picture of what the inside of the yurt looked like. So, you could upload some selfies. Our food was included. There were showers here. You could brush your teeth. So we were really out there in the middle of nowhere, but yet we did have everything you would want amenity-wise. Beautiful sunset, and even though, the Kizilkum Desert is such a hostile environment, there are signs of life, little lizards, the scrubby plants, the camels. And that evening as well, they included cultural performance. So we got to hear music and there was bonfire, as you can see in the picture, and people would get up and go dancing. But my favorite part of the overnight in the Kizilkum Desert were the stars. It was amazing. I've had an opportunity to do stargazing in a lot of cool places around the planet, but the Kizilkum Desert was probably one of the best, very memorable. And this is our yurts against the starry backdrop. Just love that. And this was the inside of the yurt too. Some people were like, well, what was the inside of the yurt? So there was a main washroom block where the toilets would be, where the showers would be. And then inside the yurt, there was four single beds, basically. We were here for a night. All right, next stop was out to Bukhara. Bukhara is probably like the oldest city because it does go back 2,500 years. And it was very famous for the Islamic scholarship that was taking place here. 140 monuments here. Of course, I didn't get to visit everyone. And they have these trade domes, these ancient bazaars, which nowadays have a lot of tourism shops. And so this was the spot to get a souvenir from mother, send a postcard home, that sort of thing. This was setting out on the road. A lot of people said, "Ah, the Borat car," even though Borat is fictitious and set in Kazakhstan and was actually filmed in Romania. But you do see these Russian-built Ladas all over the place, and this one's pulling a big old cow. And another cool thing that you see on the highway in Uzbekistan are these structures called caravanserai. And a caravanserai would basically be like an old-timey, like back in the Silk Road. This was a hotel. This is where they were going to stay. And so this is the what's left of it. And this is where for them, when they were on the Silk Road, they needed a spot that they could stay and have their valuables protected from vandals. They needed to protect their horses. Their horses had to eat. They needed nourishment. They needed a place to sleep, to clean themselves, maybe do some laundry. So it's kind of not that different from traveling nowadays. But back then, of course, in the Silk Road, it was at a caravanserai where you would make your night. And even today, you can see the caravanserais over on the right. There's a toilet there nowadays because the highway still passes by and people still need to stop and do what they've been doing for hundreds of years. And on the topics of toilets in Uzbekistan, I didn't see a foul toilet. I didn't see any that were immaculate. Everything was mediocre, but typical Western style flush toilet. And you'd have to pay 2,000 Uzbeki to go in there, which is, I don't know, like 10 cents. Anyway, we got to Bukhara, beautiful city. This was a great spot to eat. You can just see these benches, this courtyard, these mulberry trees going around the lake, the architecture in the background. Just beautiful. More blue, of course, more mosque work coming in here. We have dark blue, we have aquamarine blue, of course, that blue sky. This was another meal I ate as a vegetarian. It was a deconstructed vegetarian cabbage roll. I'm sure a lot of us know what a cabbage roll is, so that showed up. And then at night, I loved going out, at night because again, the temperature would back off a little bit, and so it was nice. And but also things would be lit up. And look at the color of blue here. I mean, that's almost electric. I just love that. Just love it. All right, next morning, Bukhara. Bukhara has a lot of these ancient fortifications as well that you can see, and this was outside of a museum dedicated to carpet making. So I wanted to check that out. Check out the carpets of this region. This one also was cool because you can see those lamps. Those reminded me of like a genie's lamp. And then again, more of these Ladas. I had a fascination with taking pictures of these Soviet-styled cars, Soviet-built cars. All right, our last stop was in Kiva, and Kiva was a spot I was really into seeing, and that was because it was the filming site, or one of the filming sites in the movie Orlando, which was made in the 1990s. But it was based on the Virginia Woolf novel, Orlando. And so somehow we ended up watching that when I was a high school student in the 90s. And I remember at that time, I think reading in the credits that it was filmed in this place called Kiva, Uzbekistan, and just thinking, wow, I would love to go there someday. I think often many of us can identify with that feeling that we see something in film or on television, and then it speaks to us and it beckons to us, and we want to go to that place. So for me, Kiva was one of those. Um, but yeah, anyway, this has it's a walled city, and we stayed inside the walls, and so that was really cool. So I'll show you what that took a look like. And then again, wandering around, exploring it early in the morning and in the evening. So just again to show you the drive out there, flat, arid. This picture's, I think, interesting. It says stop state border. I think it says don't take pictures, and yet I'm taking a picture. right across that water, that green land that you can see, that's Turkmenistan. So we were right up against the border. And Uzbekistan, very friendly, very easygoing. I had no problem there. Connectivity, Wi-Fi felt very easy to get around. But Turkmenistan's a much more restrictive country. It's almost like a North Korea or a hermit state of Central Asia. And the way our tour worked was, some of us went back to Tashkent after Kiva. Some people were continuing and they were going on to Turkmenistan. It was supported, it was guided. If you ever were to go into that country, that would be the way to do it. But it just shows how close we were to Turkmenistan. When we arrived in Kiva, there's no cars that go into the walled part, so our tour bus ended here. And then you can see the flag of Uzbekistan there. But yeah, there's this big parking lot outside of Kiva. And here I am, Kiva, the 2024 Tourism City of Islamic World. That sign's a little worse for wear. But anyway, we're here, we're in Kiva. And then we go in through the walled, you can see behind me the walls and the doorway coming in there. And so these hats were on sale all over the place in Kiva, and I think we saw them elsewhere in Uzbekistan. Thick, heavy woolen hats. I mean, again, it was 41, 42, scorching, hot, fry an egg on the sidewalk, hot. So I couldn't imagine buying these wool hats, but I do think they kind of look kind of fabulous. All right, this was our hotel that we stayed at. This is our final hotel on the Silk Road tour. And so it doesn't look like much from the outside, but it's history here. Inside is a courtyard, and all the rooms come off the courtyard. And so this place is a heritage hotel. And this photo here shows you the walls around Kiva. And then inside that, there's this labyrinth of pathways and what areas you can wander. And this is what it looks like. And these tall minarets, and again, that beautiful blue and those greens and those touches of golds and these carpets that are hanging there. Just wonderful. Here's another picture of that from another point of view. I like this picture because you can see that one topper that is so dark green, that jade emerald green. Just love that. And I also liked taking pictures to get the silhouettes as well. That was really nice against the sun. Ancient doorways, ancient walkways, cobblestone streets, places that have so much history oozing out of them. That's what you see in Kiva, things like this picture. And again, these nighttime views. Here we see the color blue brought to life in kind of a different way, but kind of the same way as what we've been seeing. This is day 10 of my tour, so I'm at this point thinking, if I don't see another blue mosque again, that won't be too soon. But going back today to look at these pictures with you today does remind me of how beautiful they all are in their individual way. I love the nights in Uzbekistan walking around, and I felt so safe. There was just everybody that I was traveling with felt very safe. In the morning, we had our final tour. So on this tour, they would have local guides hired as well to take us around their city. And so that's what we did. We got to take a look at some of the Orlando filming sites, which I was excited about. This was a Majalis, a place of Islamic scholarship. So basically a school. This is where people would have gone. Boys would have been sent to study to become prophets. And then here we have a camel that was in the street. This was probably the most colorful picture I could find of my time in Uzbekistan. Our local guide took us to a place where there was a women's collective making dyed materials, and they're turning those materials into all sorts of things. These are some scarves, I believe. And then here is the Jameh Mosque, Friday Mosque. This is all the pillars inside of that mosque. And this was used very famously in the movie Orlando. And there's a scene where Tilda Swinton just struts right through here. And it just it looks gorgeous on film. And I got to have my Tilda Swinton moment walking through here, feeling just like a movie star. And then here's a picture of our local guide. And I thanked her afterwards. I said, oh, I've wanted to come here since the 1990s, since seeing this in Orlando. And a final selfie, one of my favorite hobbies when I'm on the road, taking selfies so I can make presentations like this one. And then that evening we were walking around and I couldn't think of a better picture to wind down than this one. This was from outside of the Kiva walls. I don't know why we had popped out of the walls for a minute, but anyway, there was these huge melons that were on display. Uzbekistan is a world leader for watermelon production. And so we had lots of watermelon when we were over there, lots of different melons. And so I had to get these pictures of these melons. And this was a wonderful way to culminate my trip to Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan was my 40th country that I've had the opportunity to visit. So I just wanted to say thank you for having me here today. This is a picture on my way out from Tashkent, a picture from the plane window, pardon me, and then also a picture of the flight just buzzing over to London on my way. And again, if you like what I've talked about today, if you like my style, or if you'd like to connect, my name is Dave Wentworth and my business is Destination Whatever. And frankly, don't get to know me under my government name. Just get to know me as Destination Whatever, please and thank you. But on my website, I do have a lot of travel education. I have a travel newsletter with inspiring stories, travel info like this. I have other recorded talks. Some of my past talks with Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery are linked there, travel info, deals, and all sorts of stuff. You can learn about me, read about my education, and read about what I do. Wonderful, everybody. Well, that's a trip to Uzbekistan in record time. So I hope you enjoyed